Hi, this is Grant Bent with Fight for Forensics, and today we're going to be talking about drills in LD. So, just as an overview for the goals for today, first we want to understand the importance of drills, then understand how to pick a drill, because there's a lot of different ways that debaters can practice, and they're often not sure where to start, or where to hone in on a specific type of area. So, first, why do drills matter? Well, it's a simple fact that you're going to be much better at doing something the 10th time you do it compared to the first. And this is especially true when it comes to debate because you have to explain a lot of really complex arguments. Additionally, you are going to be making mistakes with debate, but you can always control where you make the most mistakes. That is to say, you can always practice more at home where it doesn't count, and that way when you get to the tournament where it's actually significant, you don't make the same mistake there. Additionally, drills, unlike full rounds, let you focus on specific things. Now, practice rounds are great and you should be doing them whenever you can. But at the same time, recognize that the only way to get better may at times be to focus in on a specific area in which you're struggling. So, how do you go about picking a drill? Well, the first thing that you need to do is figure out where it is that you need improvement. What areas are you struggling in? Are you having a tough time coming up with responses to framework on the spot? Maybe you're having a tough time coming up with cross-ex questions or speaking clearly, having organized speeches, selecting issues and rebuttals. Whatever the case is, there is some sort of drill that can be created if it doesn't already exist that can address that specific area and isolate that skill. And another thing we need to recognize is that you can always do a drill, even if you're alone. A lot of people think that if they don't have access to a coach, there's no way they can practice, but that couldn't be further from the truth. As a debater, talking to yourself is even a drill. As part of debate is explaining complex issues in simple ways. So just thinking about and saying out loud how you'd explain a complex issue can refine that argument to make it a little bit more precise. Just do whatever you can when you can, and you'll be just fine. And also feel free to make up your own drills. Today we're just going to be talking about a few specific drills that I find work well with specific topic areas, but once again, whatever problem you have, just figure out a scenario to put yourself in which would require that you use that skill. That basically becomes a drill. So the first topic we're going to talk about is argument generation. As a debater, you need to be able to come up with responses on the spot. You have to be quick on your feet. But in order to practice this, although experience is always going to be helpful, there are some things that you can do to get better at this. So a drill that I like to use is three-pointing everything in a case. That is, just get a case, your case usually, and write down at least 3 responses to every significant argument you find. Now, while this isn't necessarily a time drill, try to do it quickly just so you get used to the idea of being forced to come up with responses quickly. Additionally, you can always do this with any other case, your friend's case, an old case, whatever. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the point is that you're figuring out how to come up with new ideas with almost no preparation. So you can also do this by writing responses to your own blocks. Now, what I mean by this is you should be writing blocks, so you can in a way have a debate on paper with yourself, just writing responses back and forth. An additional benefit to this, not only will you be coming up with a response on the spot, but you should also now have some sort of starting point for blocks that you can add to your back files should you need them. Another drill that you can do to practice argument generation is having impromptu or limited preparation debates. Now, by this, I just mean, short debates that has a topic that people maybe aren't too familiar with, but either way, just don't do all that much research, do very, very little preparation. If you're having trouble figuring out a topic for these impromptu debates, I'd recommend a product called Spar Cards. They're basically a deck of cards that has just a bunch of little different fun, mini debate topics on them, just silly things. The idea is that you just need to be able to come up with responses on the spot. It really doesn't matter what you're actually impromptu debating about, so long as people aren't using, old research they have or anything like that. The next category of drills that we're going to look at are cross-examination drills. So a lot of people don't know what to ask in cross-examination, but this can be solved by keeping in mind one simple fact. The goal of cross-ex is usually just to get links set up for your next speech. That is to say that at the end of your cross-examination, you want to have exposed some sort of vulnerability in your opponent's case or position that you can utilize to win the round. And this is something that frankly is just going to get better with practice. But there are ways that you can practice this with a partner that are going to make your improvement a little bit faster. So I like to play around with the length of times for cross-ex drills. For example, I like extended cross-examination. The benefit to extended cross-examination is that one debater gets used to just surviving a barrage of questions, while the other debater can ask anything they want, testing the opponent's case for vulnerabilities, basically seeing how long it takes to get the opponent into a serious concession. Another way that you can do cross-ex is by shortening the time to, say, 1 minute, whatever you want to set it to. Now, the benefit to this is it forces the questioner to be very pointed, and it forces them not to allow the opponent to give long-winded responses. And the idea is that at the end of the day, you do want to get some key strategic concession. So just keep in mind two things while you're doing this. First, get as many notable concessions as you can within the time limit. Don't go aha and point it out or tell your opponent what you're going for, but just try to get as many as you can. And once again, another way that you can try this is to go for a specific concession and see how long it takes you to get there. See how long they can, survive your onslaught. The next area of drills that we're going to talk about are speaking drills. Now, when it comes to speaking, debaters have two primary problems. First is enunciation, and second is using filler words such as or like, and these reduce efficiency. So specifically with enunciation drills, there's a number of things that you can do in addition to the regular vocal warm-ups, which you can easily find online, just tongue twisters. You can always try putting a pen horizontally in your mouth, basically biting down on it. What this will force you to do is learn how to say things without moving your jaw quite as much. And what you'll find is when you actually take the pen out of your mouth after doing this for a little bit, you'll be enunciating everything much clearer. Additionally, you could try inserting gap words or sounds in between each word that you're reading. For example, if I was reading if I made the statement, I like pizza, you could, insert an ah in between everything. I like pizza ah. Now, this helps with enunciation because it forces you to focus on the words in front of you. A lot of debaters, when they're reading, kind of get passive with it and then they lose their enunciation. But when you force yourself to have a challenge such as this one, you're always going to be focusing a little bit more on the words. And lastly, try reading things backwards. And by this I mean read the word them in reverse order from right to left, down to up. Now the benefit to this is that it'll make you more familiar with material that you haven't read quite as much, such that when you get into a round, you won't be stumbling around all that much when you're reading, say, a block that you haven't read for, a month. In terms of reducing your use of filler words and maximizing your efficiency, I suggest nothing other than efficiency drills. Now, efficiency drills suck, but they work. So what efficiency drills are is you practice giving a rebuttal, say a first affirmative rebuttal. You can use an old flow, whatever it is. But the point is that while you're doing the rebuttal, anytime you say a word that isn't necessary, like or any pause like that, you restart. Now it's going to be miserable, but the good thing is that you're going to train yourself not to use those words in the first place. Now, while it's fine to use those words in regular conversation, it's not so good to use them in round. Because it's one, going to undermine your authority because it's going to look like you don't know what you're trying to say, and second, it's going to reduce your efficiency because you're going to be putting all these pauses everywhere and you're reducing the number of arguments that you can make. The last category of drills that we're going to talk about are rebuttal drills. Now, in terms of rebuttal drills, a lot of people have difficulty, creating an organized rebuttal that is going down the flow in order without hopping around, or they have difficulty going for a strategy, that is, figuring out which arguments to go for and which arguments not to. And frankly, with rebuttals, the best way to do this is just to practice it. The first are called rebuttal redos. Now, rebuttal redos are exactly what they sound like. You just redo a rebuttal, but ask yourself, what would have been the optimal strategy? How could I have done that better? And in turn, you give the speech probably multiple times, just make it the best rebuttal that you can. Now, in order to do these properly, make sure you're saving your flows. You can't really do a rebuttal redo based off of what you kind of remember the round being like at that time. It won't really work so well. So this is a good drill to do after tournaments or after practice rounds, whatever. You can do these ones alone or with a coach. Either way, it works just fine. If you have a coach, this is a very good drill to do with a coach. Now, the next drill is also another good one to do with a coach, and that is Hell 1ARs. And if you've ever done these before, you probably don't enjoy them that much. So basically, you give yourself, your coach, a teammate, whoever, a ton of prep time to write an NC and a 1NR against your AC. After this, you have them give that speech. Now make sure that the speech that they give is as hard as they can possibly make it for you. Make sure, for example, they're overloading you, using a diversity of types of arguments, just giving the best possible negative strategy. And after that, you take a few minutes, regular prep time, don't give yourself too much time, that might reduce the purpose of the drill, and then figure out how to win and give that speech. Now this is going to be incredibly difficult, but that's the idea. you're doing something as hard as it's ever going to be. So those are all the major drills that we're going to talk about today. But once again, make sure that you're always ready to come up with your own drills should you need them. And if you're trying to figure out a drill for a specific problem you have and you're really not sure where to start, feel free to give me some feedback and I'll see if I can find anything. This has been Grant with Fight for Forensics. Thanks.